house in Baltimore. Crazy week. They only played 4 games in Boston, if this feels like 40. Luke Jones joins us here after a victory to get out of town on a Thursday night where, I was a little worried Manny Machado during that home run trot was going to do it the wrong way or, take too big a stride or look at the dugout the wrong way. That's where we are now in this series, right? And I guess this is all part of the argument we had yesterday where, if the commissioner doesn't step in, if some law and order doesn't get, put in place here, this thing will linger longer, and it's going to linger longer anyway, I think.
Yeah, we'll see. The whole home run trot thing, I'll go back to what I said a couple days ago. If Boston, of all places, given David Ortiz and his propensity for taking, forever to go around the bases, if they're really going to take exception to that, then that's just completely ridiculous.
He had a bad foot, man. I mean, he had to take some time.
I'm sure it was all about his bad foot. What about 10 years ago? But, that's one of those things, trots around the bases, flipping a bat, pumping a fist. I mean, come on.
There's plenty to dislike about the Red Sox. Let's not act like I like the Red Sox here,
Right. But it's just one of those things where it's just, come on. Of all the things, all the stupidity that we've seen over the course of the last 2.5 weeks, going back to Baltimore. It was nice that was the most controversial thing that happened on Thursday night. It felt more like a baseball game, as Buck Showalter said, and a good baseball game for the Orioles at that. Considering Tyler Wilson didn't find out until about 11 o'clock Wednesday night that he was going to be starting at Fenway Park. A pretty solid effort from him. Certainly gave them a good chance to win and preserved the bullpen after the starting rotation was kind of turned on its head the previous day with Gausman being tossed and Jimenez having to pitch in relief. So, all things considered, I think that was a game that, to me, it showed a little something under the hood for the Orioles because I think that was easily a situation where, even if you heard Caleb Joseph the previous night saying, I can't wait to get out of Boston and go home and to just play baseball, it would have been easy for the Orioles to just, kind of look ahead to getting home, kind of go through the motions and just, whatever happens on Thursday. But, they played well. Tyler Wilson gave them a solid effort. The bats finally, came through in the middle of that ball game. And nice to come away with the split, considering how miserable that series was on so many different levels for the Orioles.
Well, and then, the real story is there were 2 4A pitchers in this game, right? Kind of, sort of, right?
Yeah. Oh, sure. Well, and, Kyle Kendrick, someone who had been around for a long time, but didn't pitch in the majors last year, had struggled the last couple years. He did a nice job early on, was able to wiggle out of that first inning, and, first couple times through the order was okay, and then third time through the order, the Orioles were able to get to him. Tyler Wilson, for whatever reason, and we've talked about him at length, we know the stuff isn't overwhelming, doesn't miss many bats, lots of questions whether he can last long-term in the major leagues as a long reliever, let alone as a starter. But remember, he threw 8 shutout innings at Fenway last June, so I don't know if it's something about pitching at Fenway Park that he really thrives on compared to the typical quad A kind of guy. But really nice effort for him, and I don't know, maybe it's that guy that doesn't throw real hard that the Orioles seem to have so much trouble with on a regular basis. Maybe there's something to that against the Red Sox because he's had some pretty impressive success against a really tough lineup.
He is Luke Jones. He will be at Oriole Park at Camden Yards all weekend long. And, just in general, I guess we've lost our way here this week. I've sort of lost a sight of how good the Caps were, for 6 months because they haven't been very good this week. I think with the Orioles, these games have been so choppy. There's been so much jurisprudence. There's been so much, quite frankly, internet conversation about baseball rules and racism and idiot Kurt Schilling and, all the stuff that's going on this week. You lost sight of that they've been playing pretty good baseball. Maybe we haven't given them a pat on the back, and I think it's very easy to look at them and say, well, Machado's not hitting the ball, and Davis isn't hitting the ball, and Trumbo's not hitting the ball, and somehow they're still playing .650 ball.
Yeah, I think you look at Machado beyond the batting average. He has a .325 on base percentage. He's slugging .476. He's fine. He's hit into some tough luck. There's nothing about him that concerns me right now.
Well, he's also a guy they don't want to throw strikes to, right? For the most part.
Now that's fair. That's a very fair point because Davis not hitting, Trumbo hasn't hit all year. Those two guys. Davis had one hit, Trumbo had 2 hits on Thursday night. You hope they're going to get going at some point. It's just a matter of when and how long they stay hot, I suppose. But they have some other guys hitting, and a guy that I know you asked me about the other day that I said I wasn't really concerned about. Seth Smith goes 4 for 4, raised his average from 222 to 286. So that's probably a reflection more than anything of they face so many lefty starters, and we know he's a platoon guy. I mean, he's not going to hit against lefty pitching. He never has in his career. But you look at him now, on base percentage 397. So he's been exactly what they were looking for. He's been that guy at the top of the order that, despite not having speed, is going to do a nice job. Work counts. He's going to draw walks, and he's going to, he has a little bit of pop. Certainly had the big double in that game to get the Orioles even in that one in the 4th inning. So, they haven't been firing on all cylinders, and that's why when you look at the fact that they're 17-10, you take some satisfaction in that because things haven't gone perfectly. Their bullpen, hasn't had Zach Britton. It's had hiccups, certainly. They had a very interesting 7th inning with Donnie Hart and Michael Givens combining to load the bases. So, they haven't been as great as they can be, and I still think they can be a lot better than they've been. And you mentioned some of the bats in the lineup. Kevin Gausman has not been good. Chris Tillman hasn't pitched yet. Looks like he's going to start on Sunday unless they decide to reshuffle things a little bit with Gausman not working very much, obviously, on Wednesday. So, there's a lot of things about this team that hasn't gone perfectly, but you look up and they're 7 games above 500, and the fact that they played 24 of their first 27 games against the AL East, that's something we talked about at the beginning of the season, is saying this team needs to get off to a good start. They can really put themselves behind the 8 ball if they get off to a slow start, and they haven't done that. Now, you look in the division and you see what happened to the Blue Jays. Try being them right now and looking at the fact that they're going to have to play exceptionally well to get themselves back in good position. The Orioles, the great effort from the Yankees early on notwithstanding, you have to be really pleased with what they've been able to do because you do look at their team and, there have been some things that have gone really well, like Dylan Bundy pitching so well, but there's been a lot of stuff that hasn't been so great, and yet they find themselves 7 games over 500 coming home now to face the White Sox and a little bit of a break against the division.
You mentioned the Blue Jays. They're going to have to beat teams in the division in order to make up ground because, and then they have a lot of games, but it's not something that happens in a vacuum because, these other teams keep winning. I mean, that's the hardest part for them is once you've fallen and you can't get up. You get 8, you get 10 games under 500 this earlier in the year. I mean, look, the Astros ran all year and couldn't quite catch up. That's a very difficult thing to come out from under, and the Orioles are going to have some tough times ahead. I don't know if anybody's bat's going to wake up. I don't know that Davis and Trumbo really aren't going to go into a season-long slumber. Power hitters do that. And, Davis had his own problems 3 years ago. So, and Trumbo had his problems just in getting here. By the way, I got a little Giovanni Gallardo update for you because I was wondering, literally, I'm watching Seth Smith get on base the 3rd time, the 4th time, and I'm like, I haven't looked Gallardo up there. So you want his stats?
Sure.
1 in 3, 5 starts. He's made every start, by the way. 28 innings, 34 hits, 16 earned runs, only 2 bombs. He has struck out 23 in 28 innings. ERA 5.08.
Yeah, that's about what you'd expect from him at this point. I mean, it's and I'll make that trade again and again and again.
By the way, Nelson Cruz is hitting 330 with 27 ribs too. Just little Seattle update. I know we're not awake late at night, so I'll be out in Seattle this time next week. I will not be watching. I'll be watching Bono, not Cano. Luke Jones joining us here. You can find him, Baltimore Luke, and Luke at WNST.net. All right, the White Sox come in. Thoughts on them at this point? I mean, clearly won't have to see Chris Sale this weekend.
Yeah. I mean, the White Sox off to a respectable start. That's a team that their bullpen pitched well. Certainly not a team that has expectations of being in it for the long haul. We saw what they did over the offseason, trading Sale, trading Adam Eaton. I mean, that's clearly a team that is trying to get younger, trying to build for something in the future. But in the meantime, so far this season, they've played pretty well. I mean, their offense has been good enough, and their pitching. I mean, you look at it; they've allowed fewer runs than anyone in their division and anyone in the American League. So, I mean, it's certainly a team that has surprised early on. I don't expect them to be there in the end, but to this point, they've been for real. The 15-12, the run differential is plus 16, so it's not like it's been a complete fluke. But that's a team that they've had some pretty. They've had some good pitching efforts. Miguel Gonzalez being one of them.
I was getting ready to bring that up. I didn't even know he's one of our all-time faves around here. So Miguel Gonzalez is 3-1, 33 innings. He's made all 5 of his starts, 35 hits. He's struck out 21. Only he's let's see how many. Where's my walks here? I lost my walks. But ERA 3.27. So very, very respectable for a guy that we essentially just threw out last year.
They
get
did.
out.
I mean, not even essentially. They got rid of him. I mean, it was a case of he was going to be making, I can't remember what it was, $5.5 million. I mean, it was some real money, but not exactly expensive for a starting pitcher who's pretty reliable. And I'll still go back to what I said at the time. It's one thing to say you're going to move on from Miguel Gonzalez. It's another thing to do it. And Mike Wright and Tyler Wilson were the alternatives that the Orioles thought would give them just as good a performance. I mean, that's the real indictment. If you had said, we're going to give up on Miguel Gonzalez because Dylan Bundy is ready to step into the rotation, and then he does it and pitches exceptionally well, then you say, well, you could have held on to him, but at least the guy you replaced him with did a great job. Well, we've seen how that spot has gone, but at some point, you just chalk it up to,
bad decision.
Win some,
yeah,
you're going to lose some, and they've lost plenty in terms of their starting pitching anyway. But they still find a way to win games. But overall, you look at that team. They've had some guys that have pitched really well, and an interesting team early on because you look at them. They only have a couple guys that are really swinging the bats overly impressive. Abreu's been okay, but certainly not the guy he has been in the past. Has 4 home runs. It's nothing to be overwhelmed about. They have a couple other guys. Avisail Garcia's hit well for them, certainly. But overall, it's been a lot more about their pitching, which as far as why they've been successful so far this season. We'll see how well they pitch at Camden Yards over the weekend.
We got football going on as well. I know you'll be at Camden Yards over the weekend. The Ravens Rooks are all headed to Baltimore for a not a great weather weekend here, but certainly first time to look around the building. I'm not even sure if any of these guys came in on visits, quite frankly, but guys making their debuts in Owings Mills. It is an exciting time out in the building. I know how much the coaches look forward to this.
Yeah, I mean, rookie camp's always strange because you end up having a bunch of tryout guys on the field, and being there as a member of the media, you're trying to figure out who a lot of these guys are. A lot of these guys you're never going to hear from again because they won't sign them. A lot of the rookie free agents, they'll put out a list, but then they'll cut a few guys here and there right away, sign some new guys. I mean, there's plenty of fluidity in terms of how that looks. But it's good to see Marlon Humphrey and Tyus Bowser and Tim Williams and Nico Siragusa on the field. Kind of get an idea for, one, what these guys look like. Two, you get an idea for their athleticism, their speed, all of those different things. But it's always interesting because they should stand out because they're going up against a bunch of rookies and first-year players, undrafted guys that clearly aren't going to even stick on a 90-man roster for the duration of the offseason, let alone be on the 53-man. So it's always, rookie camp's always nice because it looks like football, but then you start watching practice and you're thinking, they still have a long way to go before they're even to training camp. But, it's the next step. We always talk about those steps you cross off of the offseason to the point that where you get to real football, and it's just another step to go through, and hopefully John Harbaugh or anyone else that they don't have any designs of putting these guys in pads and getting themselves in trouble again.
Fair enough, fair enough. Well, rest up. Plenty of baseball this weekend down at Camden Yards. If you're headed down, hopefully, the weather holds off and everything's good and everybody's comfortable and all that good stuff. The Birds taking on the White Sox. It's Miley and Gonzalez on Friday, Bundy and Covey on Saturday, and Quintana and Tillman on Sunday. Then, of course, a couple games against the Nats. Hey, why not some bad blood with the Nationals next week? You want to have some bad blood with somebody, have some bad blood with them, right?
I want nothing but good blood at this point. I am so tired of talking about the unwritten rules and brawls and time trotting around the bases. I mean,
Meathead Radio. It's almost like our competitor. It's great.
It was so refreshing that, if Boston wanted to make something out of Manny Machado's time around the bases, have at it, Hoff.
I can shove you harder. I can push you harder. I can swear at you louder. I can point to you with a stronger pointer finger. You know?
But it was nice that beyond that, it felt like a baseball game again. And certainly nice to see the Orioles get a win. As brutal as that road trip felt, when you consider what happened the first two nights in the Bronx and just the overall drama and all the different things going on, from the racial taunts at Adam Jones and everything that happened there, to everything that happened with beanballs and ejections and all of that. The Orioles came away from the road trip 3-4. It's not great, but certainly not something that puts you in a much worse position than they were before. So you'll take it, come home, and get out of the division for a little while, play some of these other teams. And like you said, strike up that local rivalry, the Masson Cup, right?
Yeah, we should all be so. That's a cup I want to pee in, I think. You can find Luke at Baltimore. Luke at WNST.net. Baltimore Luke on Twitter. You can find me, Nasty, at WNST.net all weekend long. I will be with the Caps on Saturday night, as long as it takes. Obviously, the Wizards got themselves back right on Thursday night as well, so that series will linger longer, and I am all derbied up and oaksed up this weekend as well. You can find me, Nasty, at WNST.net. I am on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram. We are working hard on the road trips. Nashville, Green Bay, London, all on sale, all $100 off this weekend only. Toss me a note. We'd love to have you along with us. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.